spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that you came here with compassion. You came here on earth with compassion, the kind of compassion that can never be killed. No amount of cynicism can kill your compassion. No amount of betrayal can kill your compassion. No amount of irritation can kill your compassion. It's finite. It's not finite. It's infinite. Your compassion is infinite. It's part of your DNA. You can cover it up with disappointment from unmet expectations, but you can never kill it. Compassion is often associated, of course, with Divine Mother, but is found equally in both genders. Today, however, of course, we're celebrating Mother's Day. So I'm going to ask all the mothers in the church this morning, will you please stand? Mothers in the church, please stand. Let us give you some love. And if you're a grandmother, will you continue standing? If you're a grandmother, will you continue standing? So happy to have you in the church this morning. And are there any great-grandmothers in the church? Oh, good, welcome. So wonderful. So wonderful. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your mothering. Mother's Day started in the late 1800s by a suffragette, a woman named Jarvis, who lost her mother, whom she loved deeply. She asked her pastor for a picnic to celebrate her mothers and all the other mothers in her church. It grew so rapidly and was so successful, other churches started replicating this picnic day. And eventually she took it to the Pennsylvania State Legislature and asked them for a day called Mother's Day in that state. It took her 8 years to convince that legislature to have a Mother's Day holiday, but she did. And eventually she took it to Woodrow Wilson, and he made it a national holiday that it is today. So what does all this have to do with God? Jarvis is God in action. Anytime we pay respect or we honor any part of our humanity, in this case mothers, but any part in our humanity, we honor all of humanity. Additionally, what a wonderful demonstration of the combination of intention and perseverance for us to model. I want to acknowledge today that we're paying tribute to an idealized version of motherhood, and not all of us have experienced that. Some of us, of course, had great relationships with our moms, and if our moms are still alive today, we continue to have great relationships. We rely on them, and they rely on us. I was touched by George Floyd when he called for his mother as he was being murdered. I was equally touched by Daunte Wright when he called his mom on the telephone just before he was murdered by police. Mother love is powerful, powerful love, and we call on it when we need it the most. For many of us, however, today is filled with memories of a mother who, for one reason or another, could not give us the kind of mothering that we needed or that we deserved in our childhood. For others, it's a day filled with painful memories of us being a mother who couldn't, for one reason or another, give our children the mothering that they deserved to have when they were kids. And yet, we are all called on people on the spiritual path to remember that when we say everybody is doing the very best they can with the consciousness they have at every given moment, we mean mothers too. You know, I used to blame my mother because she made it clear she didn't want to know anything about my life. To this day, I'm not sure why, but I wanted a relationship with her. Maybe it's Hallmark's fault. Maybe it's just a natural desire that never goes away. But my relationship with her from the age of 15 on was completely inauthentic. I made her nervous just by walking into the room. When I found these teachings, though, I could begin to look at my mother for who she was, a woman who was afraid for me and who was afraid for herself. And she found that coping mechanism that so many of us have, which is called sticking our head in the sand and just ignoring everything. No matter what happened after we got here, we can rest assured our moms worked very hard to get us through the birth canal. I like to say that every Mother's Day because if nothing else, we have gratitude for our mothers who got us here. See, I believe you chose them. I believe your soul chose them, that there are no accidents in this world. They chose them to give you the start you needed in your life. So let's thank them right now. And those of you at home, you do it also. Just repeat after me, Mother, thank you for bringing me into this world. Let's do it one more time. Mother, thank you for bringing me into this world. And the good news is that that all of us, no matter what our mothering issues might have been, can have a very positive relationship with our mothers right now, whether they are alive or they've already gone on. But to have a positive relationship with our mothers right now, we have to master a spiritual practice, and that spiritual practice is called forgiveness. It's not optional. You can't get around it. If you want to heal your relationship with your mother, alive or beyond the veil, you have to be able to master and remember that forgiveness is a must-do. Sometimes in New Thought communities, in fact, a lot in New Thought communities, we forget that there are some must-dos for happiness. See, New Thoughters are often the first people to say, I don't want to, you can't make me, you're not the boss of me. We love to say that. We prefer the wisdom of take what you like and leave the rest. And you know what? We can still do that. You can still leave forgiveness on the table. You don't have to, unless we want a harmonious relationship with our families. Buddha says we're cosmically tied to that which we hate. You know, you can leave forgiveness on the table unless you want abundant finances. Catherine Ponder teaches us no good thing can be withheld from a forgiving mind. You can leave forgiveness on the table unless you want good health. Carolyn Mace, in her book, Why Victims Never Heal and How They Can, teaches us we've given the power away to those who have trespassed against us when we need it the most to be able to heal. We've got to get our power back. Jesus held the practice of forgiveness in such high esteem that he included it in how he taught his disciples how to pray. When he taught his disciples how to pray, he said, Our Father. And by the way, just as an aside, always remember that when we hear that prayer, he said, Our Father. He didn't say the Christian's Father, the Jew's Father, the Hindu's Father, the Muslim's Father, the atheist's Father. He said, Our Father, everybody's Father, our Father. Forgive our trespasses as we forgive others. If you've been coming for a while, you've heard me say 1,000,000 times that everyone is working with the very best consciousness they have at any given moment. We're actually quite fond of that phrase. We like it when I say that, when we're thinking about our own mistakes. We don't like it so much when we're thinking of others. But there's no time it's not true. And we can get into that state of consciousness if we don't mix up forgiveness and tolerance. See, some sins should fall into the category of forgive and forget. And others need to be in the category of forgive and don't ever forget. Forgive and don't ever tolerate. Racism is a mistake. It's to be forgiven, but it's not to be tolerated. Homophobia is a mistake. It's to be forgiven, but not to be tolerated. Ageism is a mistake, to be forgiven, but not to be tolerated. Misogyny is a mistake, to be forgiven, but not to be tolerated. There is no spiritual coin in allowing somebody else to step on your neck. There is no spiritual coin in allowing somebody else to beat you up. Turn the other cheek does not mean become a punching bag for unleavened or half-baked people. It means turn your attention away from the fight and into the solution. And the solution is forgiveness. There are two kinds of forgiveness that we can use. And while both are effective, one of those methods will catapult us into a bliss we don't even know about. Traditional forgiveness is the kind I usually talk about. Traditional forgiveness practices ask you to forgive by knowing that the act of meanness is done by somebody with a low vibrating consciousness. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. I call this forgiveness clenched teeth forgiveness. Traditional forgiveness works, but there's a deeper forgiveness model that's available to us. It's called radical forgiveness, and it's written about in a book by the same name by the late Colin Tipping. It makes the underlying assumption, which is what Ernest Holmes' assumption is. There are no victims in this world. There is no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. Only our thinking makes it so. Radical forgiveness asks us to recognize that nothing in our experience, either individually or as a society, is random or a mistake. It's based on the idea that our soul called an activity that caused us pain so we can heal it. We can dismantle the button that got pushed. Not live with it, not endure it, not minimize the damage from it, but actually heal it. Course in Miracles says that nothing can be healed until it has been revealed. Both mainstream and social media is helping us reveal racism and misogyny in our lives today that needs healing. See, in some ways, I think we need to thank unconscious police for giving birth to Black Lives Matter movement and all its allies for the healing that's beginning. It's just beginning, but it's beginning to take place today in terms of racism. In some ways, we need to thank Trump and Kavanaugh and Cosby and Gates and Epstein for the renewed energy in the healing taking place in the Me Too movement. Have we arrived yet? No, of course not. But I believe the healing has been accelerated. Unconscious folks are doing us a favor. They are what the Talmud might call our healing angels. You know, I've felt victimized in my time by homophobia. Mean-spirited people said mean-spirited things and did mean-spirited things to me. In traditional forgiveness, I would try and have compassion for their stupidity. I can remember marching with a clean and sober contingent in the Gay Pride Parade in Santa Rosa and having a man that said Christ loves on his t-shirt throw beer on me. Now, I could have had compassion for his stupidity, but in radical forgiveness, I'm called to gratitude for pointing up somewhere inside of me that I didn't feel as good as others. See, once I began to feel that I'm a child of God and not an abomination, the mean-spirited people simply went away. They couldn't offend me anymore. The Bible tells us that mean-spirited people might have meant their behavior for evil, but God always means it for good. Try it on yourself the next time somebody offends you. If you're overweight, the next time you feel put down, ask yourself where you might agree with them. Because once we heal our low self-esteem, they will go away. The mean-spirited people will just go away. They'll offer their healing to somebody else, but they'll just be on their way. Often in this church, we teach don't take things personally. But if you're hurt or you're angry, I would invite you to take it very personally. Never mind what motivates them. They've just given you a gift. Don't miss it. Here's the key to radical forgiveness and the healing wounds that keep you from having a closer walk with God. And that's a willingness to open up to the idea that there is absolutely nothing to forgive. And when you do that, when we open up to the idea that there's nothing to forgive, you have just duplicated the nature of spirit. God does not judge you as good or bad, right or wrong. In God's eyes, you are the child God's always been waiting for. Here's a bonus spiritual truth for you this morning. Your good is not magic. It's the result of your alignment. Your good is not magic. It is the result of your alignment with God and with spiritual principles. Your bad days mean that your alignment was off. When my alignment is off, the universal intelligence, which is another word for God, simply sends me based on my thoughts, based on my reaction to life, simply sent me a lesson. Now, it's not a shaming lesson. It's not a you're a big dope lesson. It's not you're a bad person lesson. It's a lesson that says, come back here. You're out of alignment. When the tires on your car are out of alignment, you don't get mad at them. You simply fix them. And once you fix them, you're in for a less bumpy ride. Well, that's how forgiveness works. Forgiveness at the human level is exactly what is needed to help you have a less bumpy ride. Sometimes it's distasteful to forgive. Sometimes I don't want to forgive. Sometimes we mistakenly believe that to forgive somebody makes us look weak. It makes us look like we're inviting more people to trespass against us, to think of us as an easy mark. If you don't hear anything else today, hear this. Forgiveness is not about anybody else. It's only about ourselves. It's only about you. When you're willing to forgive, first ponder a couple of questions as you start the process. Number one, forgiveness does not mean you condone anybody's behavior. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone their behavior. Number two, take time to ask the question about the trespass again. Is it really how it happened? Most of us embellish the trespasses against us, and if we're in the habit of telling our trespasses to our friends and our family, we often make it worse. So we'll get more sympathy, or we'll get more support for our plot to revenge. Remember, you don't have to justify your feelings of being injured. They're your feelings. They're your feelings, and they're okay. We don't have to make things worse than they are. Number three, can I look at this trespass as a lesson I'm supposed to learn something from? Is God trying to get my attention here about boundaries? Is God trying to get my attention about balance? Is God trying to get attention about healing my past? Can I get some help from a practitioner at my church to figure out how the situation may be what I called into my life for a reason? Am I willing to stop talking about this to anybody except my practitioner and my prayer partner? Because if I am, the healing will come much faster. As we celebrate Mother's Day, let's forgive and reunite with all of our moms. And if we are a mom and we feel like we missed the mark a little bit or a lot, let's use this opportunity to forgive ourselves, to know that we've always been working with the very best consciousness that we have at any given moment. Let's take this message into prayer. There's only one power in the universe. It's the power of love. And when I allow it to run through me, I love the good times I had with my mother and the not so good times I had with my mother. They were all purposeful. I love every mother and every mother substitute on this planet. I give thanks for all the fathers who are serving as father and mother. I give thanks for all the teachers who've served as mothers in the classroom. I give thanks for all beings and for the Great One for always saying yes. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.